0. Now it's died. Hello, and welcome to this first proper episode of Chewing the Fat with me, Phil Cobley, and my co-host, Adam Furman. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Phil. How are you today?
I'm good. It's nice to finally be able to sit down and do our first proper recording.
Yeah, it's taken a little while to get here. Both of us are very busy, but no, things started.
That's it. Yeah, far too busy. But when did we do the pilot? When our demo
back
pilot?
in February. Yeah, back in February.
And it's now middle of April.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taken just a little while to get around to it, but yes, welcome to any and all who are listening in to the I don't know what to call it, podcast, video podcast. I don't know.
It's a podcast.
It's a podcast with video, if you want to watch the video bit, I suppose. But yes, welcome. This is Chewing the Fat, a digital forensics and digital investigations podcast, kind of where we're looking at focusing on discussing all the industry news, things that are going on with digital forensics, trying to keep it relatively casual, nothing too strict. We've got a rough agenda. Hopefully we'll be able to keep to it. We might not manage to keep to it. As I'm sure Adam will confirm with me that we do go off on tangents and we do talk a lot. So
yeah.
trying to keep this down to our time limit for the podcast is going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll talk about the industry news. We've got a topic for each episode. So our topic this week, we're going to be talking about the same topic we actually talked about during our kind of demo pilot podcast, which, Adam, I'll let you kind of say what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, so we spoke about a College of Policing report that was put together, and very silently, and when they announced it, they had very short dates as to which you could put a reply together to indicate how you felt about it. But the report was basically to replace the ACPO guidelines that have been in place for a long time, and that they are still relevant in my opinion. But yeah, so we're going to be taking a look at that, the pros and cons, and whether or not the ACPO principal guidelines do still hold true.
Awesome. Very interesting topic. And we'll clarify all things like, if you're not quite sure, if you're new to the industry or whatever, things like, ACPO. We'll talk about what those are and what that means, stands for, etc. And maybe we'll even touch on everybody's favourite subject of ISO 17025.
Yeah,
maybe.
I couldn't bring myself to say those words, so I'm glad you did.
What a topic to start off a podcast series.
Just go, no.
Nope, switch off, turn it off. We'll have a discussion about that topic, and then we'll go on to a little segment that we call Forensic Faux Pas, where this week Adam and I will be kind of telling you a couple of stories about some of the stupid and ridiculous things that we've done in our careers in digital forensics, all the mistakes that we've made. But then with future episodes, we're hoping to get, and we know that we're going to get a few, get special guests on to have a chat with us and kind of talk around the various topics and discussion points. And we'll be getting our guests to also tell us their forensic faux pas. So hopefully some industry greats, well-known names, telling us about some of the, as we all do, some of the really stupid things that we've done.
Yeah, because we all made them at some point.
All made them. So if you are new to the industry, or if you're just getting started, or even if you've been in it for a while but you haven't really been keeping up to date with the news and topics and what's going on, hopefully you'll enjoy that segment. And if we know for a fact, and I know I definitely suffer with it, that imposter syndrome is a big deal with digital forensics and cyber. So we're all in the same boat. None of us really know what we're doing. We're all blagging it and making it up as we go along, and we've all done really stupid things.
Yeah, and we probably should introduce ourselves as well. So Phil and I are both UK based, both have a policing history, both worked in digital forensic labs as former police officers.
It's true.
Yeah, and we've both been involved in computer and mobile forensics. So we're going to want to keep this podcast sort of discussing the entire industry, really, because it's all relevant. And computer forensics, that the same principles that we followed for analysis and things are now moving into mobile. So, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think between us we've got something like 30 odd years in policing.
Yeah,
I think, haven't we? And probably half of that forensics.
yeah,
So a little bit of experience in the room, and some severe imposter syndrome.
yeah.
But yeah, and we'll with the podcast and the release, we'll be putting with the description and everything, contact information. So if anyone wants to kind of drop us a note, say hi, tell us that we're doing a good or a terrible job,
Or suggestions for topics,
yeah, topic suggestions, or if you want to, once you've heard the forensic faux pas, if you want to write in with any of your funny stories or silly things that you've done, then please do feel free to write into us and let us know, because it'd be great to hear all the silly things.
And we can read them out and obviously hide your name if you want.
We can anonymise them, yes, absolutely. Although I guarantee that whatever you tell us, someone else has done the same thing somewhere. Sure,
Definitely.
they have. The other thing that we'd like to say is that you'll notice that we do have some branding on us. It's not entirely intentional.
No.
Partially, not entirely.
Not this podcast has product placement.
For anyone in listening to the audio podcast, that was Adam holding up an MSAB mug. Yeah, but yeah, Adam works for MSAB. I did work for MSAB. I now consult with them along with others, but I actually run my own business called CDL Solutions, which I do digital learning, but mostly in forensics. But even though we do have affiliations with MSAB, and they are very kindly footing the bill and sponsoring this podcast, we are keeping it vendor neutral. We want to do this we very explicitly kind of said that we wanted to do this for the community as just as an opportunity to kind of reach out to fellow practitioners and investigators and kind of try and help support them and give them something where we can catch up with news and have a bit of fun while we're doing it. And maybe like help support like network connections and getting people in touch with one another and whatever helps really. And MSAB have been really, really, really good about that. Really kind of supporting us with the kind of neutral kind of don't worry, we'll help support this because we want to also help support the community. So little not necessarily intentional product placement, but a big thanks to them just kind of for believing in us really and
allowing us
the chance.
And allowing us to do it in that sort of vendor neutral capacity, because anyone within the industry knows we all need multiple tools, so being able to talk about that freely is honest and open, and you have to use multiple tools.
You do, and
verification. So
yeah, that's it. I mean, like Adam said, both of us have worked in forensic labs in the police. Adam is a investigator and examiner and specialist, and I did a while as a sergeant managing a lab, and very, very aware of the fact that you need multiple tools, and no tool is ever going to be doing everything for you. You need multiple tools for your validation and your verification, and kind of ever since ISO 17025 came in, and we'll get into this later, we have found a lot of flaws and holes in tools that wouldn't have been picked up otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it's that's kind of one of the good things about having multiple tools and being able to benchmark them against one another. So we're both quite passionate, I think, about that, and we're both also quite big advocates of kind of open source and scripting and kind of free tools and kind of supporting the community to support themselves and all that kind of stuff. So so you might hear us prattle on about some of the free tools as well, one of which I do want to talk about later on as well. So without further ado, well, actually, no, before we move on, how are you doing, Adam, anyway?
I'm doing okay. Off the back of a night shift, delivered a webinar this morning, early hours for the Australian market. Running a exam and investigate series, sort of detailing how to run an actual investigation, how to keep an event log, and how you shouldn't examine a device without a submission form to make sure it's justified and proportionate. So yeah, I've been enjoying doing that, but yeah, I thought I'd finish night shifts, so I'm a little bit
Yeah.
tired, but I'm okay.
But you're battling through so that you can be here today doing the
Exactly,
podcast. That's
exactly.
it. Yeah, you
So,
trooper. I do take my hat off to you. I do not miss night shifts either. Funnily enough, last time when we did the pilot episode for this, it was just as Adam was going onto a night shift for a Australian webinar. So you were kind of just getting into the groove of being in the office and like prepping yourself for this webinar. And now you're on the other side of it, recovering from the webinar.
Yeah, it's the joy of finishing a night shift where you haven't got a night shift to follow, so you force yourself to wake up so you'll actually sleep normally again the same day, but your eyes are burning, but coffee helps.
Yes, coffee helps, absolutely.
But how's your week been?
Manic. So the life, I've only been doing my private company full time for the last few weeks, but I can safely say that it is a very eye-opening experience. There's a lot of client demands. It's been really, really busy.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's good. It is good. I'll be honest. Whilst I've been ploughing on with work and kind of cracking on with work and getting things done, the things that I've been looking forward to the most over the last couple of weeks happened at the beginning of this week, which was I finally managed to get a haircut.
Me too.
So I'm just going to take my headphones and say, it's all short now.
So before this, just want to point out that Phil looked like Dawson's Creek.
I was lovingly told by the MSOB UK team that I looked like I'd come out of Dawson's Creek. I've never seen the show, so I then had to Google what everyone looked like in Dawson's Creek. And I realised, I did. I did. All the sweeping back hair, and it was horrible.
And pubs reopened in the UK.
They did on Monday, so today's Thursday. So they did open early this week. I have not been.
No, me neither, because I'm a middle-aged man and I prefer to get my hair cut.
Yeah, same here. I was more excited about getting my hair cut than I was about going to the pub.
But yeah, to be honest, the thought of... So in the UK, the rule is that you have to sit outside. You're still not allowed to sit in a venue. And the UK is up to a massive high of 12 Celsius during the day at the moment. So sitting, hugging a cold pint is... No. I'll pass for a little while.
No. And I know for a fact that both Adam and I suffer with circulatory issues, so staying warm is difficult. So no, I'm gonna probably wait a little bit, either to have a drink maybe at the weekend during the day, when it's a little bit warmer, or just wait until the middle of May. I think it is May 17th.
Yeah.
Inside opens up and you can sit inside. So yeah, it's been what over a year now.
Feels like 20, but yeah.
Yeah, I can wait another month. It's all right.
But at least we're 2 stone lighter with our haircuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And saved a lot of money because I haven't been going to the pub.
Yeah. So it's win-win.
It's win-win on so many counts. Anyway, what do we say about going off on tangents? So, okay, let's talk about some industry news.
Yeah.
So, what's been happening? When we did the pilot, it was actually frustrating in a way because there was actually some really good industry news going on. And there was this collective series of articles and podcasts and various other things where lots of different people, lots of different vendors were talking about iOS and it was around about the time when 14.4, 14.5 had come out for iOS, and you had Heather Malik talking about kind of the location data on iOS from her Life Has No Control Alt Delete. Also repeated, obviously, with Celebrate and Sans. And you've got you had Belkasoft talking about iOS forensics. You had Josh Hickman, our friend Josh, talking about iOS and macOS in his latest blog. Quick shout out to Josh. Hello. You had, and I pronounced this okay in the pilot. I don't know if I'll pronounce this well again. Oleg Afonin.
Perfect.
Elcomsoft to talk about iOS recovery mode. Thank you. And MSAB talked about 14.4 and checkbrain, and my favourite, but despite all this iOS stuff that was going on, my favourite article that came out back then, and I wanted to mention it again today because I just think it's quite good, was from Jessica Hyde talking over at Magnet, talking about Twitter of all things. And I mean, why do you think this is such a thing for me, Adam?
Because you're now on Twitter, and you're now the joy of Twitter.
Yes. So for so long I avoided Twitter. I was never on Twitter. Didn't understand it. People talk about tweets and things. I was like, yeah, I kind of get it. I think I learnt more about Twitter when Trump was in office than I did from before it. But yeah, then I kind of read Jessica's article, which was simple, straightforward, but it struck a chord. It talked about the community and Twitter and supporting one another, and like the DFIR hashtag and things like that. And so I thought I better get on there because, as you know, I'm a big supporter of kind of the community and helping one another. Just like the digital Discord server, which recently hit 3 years old, I think.
It did, yeah.
As well. Another news thing. So yeah, I wanted to just kind of mention that what we talked about previously in the pilot, because that Twitter post did hit home a little bit. Kind of, I thought, yeah, we need to do more about supporting each other and just kind of getting onto these social platforms. And I mean, you've had some really good experiences with it, haven't you? And your
and obviously I shared a tweet with you the other day because I didn't realise I'd been on Twitter for 10 years.
No.
Yeah, I don't know where that 10 years has gone. But yeah, I think it was around about 18 months ago, the DFIR hashtag were running a DFIR fit. And people were encouraging each other to get fit, which, you know, most of us probably need to start that hashtag again after lockdown. I know I do. But yeah, it's like you say, it's just a way for people to reach out. I've had previous colleagues who have been investigating iOS deep into the databases, and they've reached out to Sarah Edwards on Twitter, and she's taken the time out to reply to them and help them. And I think that's what the industry is about. It doesn't matter who we work for, we should all be approachable and remember that we all started from scratch.
Yeah.
And I know we said it on the pilot podcast, and I hate the terminology of calling yourself an expert.
Yeah. Can't stand it.
I mean, and no, Twitter's just a great place to share that information, and it's different to Facebook because you can be that little bit more anonymous. So people feel, you know, imposter syndrome and things like, people feel more free to share, you know, and help each other. So it's good. Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely found it to be much easier to kind of just get involved and chat and join in conversations than any of the other platforms, really. So so to Jessica, thank you for putting that post out. It kind of struck a chord, positive chord. What we should probably do, now you're a Twitter expert, is probably make a Chewing the Fat podcast Twitter.
Remember what we said about the expert term?
Yeah, true.
That's definitely something though that I would quite happily delegate to you. Is the 10 years in Twitter?
I will get one set up.
Good man. So watch this space for our Twitter hashtag, or whatever it is, handle. I don't know.
Yeah, and when I sign up for it, I'll realise that it's already gone, and we'll end up having to. But we'll see.
We'll see. But anyway, other recent news. Moving on, that's actually well, I say other recent news, as opposed to what we were talking about a couple of months ago. That has kind of come out. There's some people in the industry might have seen through This Week in Forensics a article about a new Android triage tool that has been released to the community, and I'm definitely going to get the names wrong here. So it was developed by Mattia Epifani.
That seems right.
Yeah. And it was reblogged and posted about through Andrea Fortuna. So that's all been mentioned in This Week in Forensics. And the Android triage tool, it's all you need for this tool to work. Is essentially the connectors for your device, a device that either has a passcode that you know or doesn't have a passcode, and ADB.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you can basically triage the Android device all through this one script, which I think is fantastic. It's a lovely little tool. It looks really straightforward. I haven't tried it yet. I've been meaning to. I haven't tried it yet. But I've read through the how-to guide and stuff, and it looks great. You get some really good output logs, and kind of you can get an understanding of what's on the device and some of the device information and stuff, and all outputs it to some text files, and it looks great.
I think any opportunity to get down and dirty in ADB, most people enjoy, and the fact that it's all run from a bash script is just amazing.
What was your comment earlier when we started talking about this again?
Yes, when it made me feel a real geek is how much I love batch scripts and automating everything.
It was almost a little bit wrong, wasn't it? It was almost like, batch script. Oh.
Yeah.
It's almost like a rubbing the thighs moment. That was a bit disturbing. But oddly, I completely understood. I was completely with you on that one. But yeah, no, I agree. I think this command line stuff, I prefer it.
Yeah.
It's just so much more. I say so much more straightforward. It is straightforward once you understand what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
And I think understanding what you're doing with it, it's just a case of practicing it and doing it over and over again, and becoming familiar with what you're doing over and over again. So
it's like anything with digital forensics, Phil, and I always tell this to people new in the industry, is test, and have a test laptop, a test device, and use the devices and dump them. And it's you know exactly what you were doing. So
just try out that stuff. If it doesn't work, oh well, try something else.
Exactly.
Just figure out why it didn't work, and then it'll increase your understanding. And no one ever comes into this industry and can just pick stuff up and just run with it and know exactly what's going on.
No, and there is never going to be, however much bosses think there is not a find evidence button.
No, and I'm glad, because we'd all be out of a job.
Yeah.
And the industry would slowly crumble to death. So but you're right. There's never going to be a find evidence button, and it's changing so quickly. The industry, no one's ever going to be able to keep up.
Well, funny enough, I met up with my brother-in-law yesterday, who's a database developer, and we were having a chat about sort of the different databases in use, and I asked him if he'd heard of Realm, which he hadn't, but he's dabbled a bit in Mongo, and I sort of said, what makes, obviously being a database developer, I said, what makes you choose these other platforms? And he said, put simply, because I can. And it's a bit like Apple with their different timestamps in the same table. Why? Because they can.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, although you mentioning Realm just kind of put a shiver down my spine a little bit of all the research I've been having to do recently on Realm, and learning about Realm. Yeah,
did you want to say, because obviously what you're doing that research for? Because I think that's quite a good thing for people to know.
I think it's very important to know. So again, one of the things that one of the sponsors for this podcast, I didn't mention before, but through MSAB, really, I suppose, is For Mobile, the For Mobile project, which is kind of sponsored and funded through the EU with central funding. And the For Mobile project is all around trying to develop standards and training and tools that support law enforcement in their quest to carry out mobile forensics, mobile forensic analysis, which is a fantastic project. I've been involved with it for quite some time, well, since its inception almost, really. And yeah, one of the things that I'm working on, one of the many things I'm working on for the project at the moment is developing a file format handbook. So similar to the concept is similar to what Brian Carrier did with the file systems book that he developed many years ago, but with some common file formats, and particularly a number of database files. So there's obviously SQLite and stuff in there. We've got a few file systems in there, and we've also got Realm databases as well, because that's an up-and-coming kind of database format. We're starting to see that in some applications, and it does function very, very differently to SQLite. And so yeah, I've been having to do some research on that because I got given the task of developing that chapter for the book. And yeah, it's getting to the point, like when you do your uni studies and you kind of study something to death and get to that point where you just, once you're done, you don't want to see it ever again.
Yeah. I really thought it was going to take off. I think it was at the beginning of lockdown last year where people started using House Party. And I think Alexis Bragoni did an article on passing the House Party app, and it was using Realm. But I've got to admit, I haven't seen it in use as much as I thought it would be.
No, I thought it was going to be more common by this point, to be fair. And it was when we were talking about the book ages ago when we first started doing it. There was a lot of expectation that by the time the book came out, this would almost be old news. But yeah, there's not actually that many apps that have adopted it that I've seen as yet. I don't know if it's just because we're waiting for them to kind of filter through and eventually kind of see off the SQLite stuff, or if people have looked at it and developers have looked at it and gone, actually, it doesn't quite do what we want it to do.
Doesn't feel like my comfy old armchair of SQLite.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's got so much potential and so many capabilities and functions, but it is a little bit more complex, and it's in a nutshell, rather than just creating a database on a standalone database and then populating it with a load of data, and just kind of almost like an Excel spreadsheet, you have to effectively go in and code all of your tables, and instead of columns you create objects and object instances for all of your data. So if you're familiar with object oriented programming, then it will be quite straightforward for you. And thankfully I did Java at uni. So
yeah, we both did the same course, didn't we? Object oriented. Yeah,
that's it. So so I'm looking at it thinking, right, yep, kind of got this is fine. And obviously doing all the Python stuff that we do is fine. But yeah, I think anyone else who's not object orientated in that kind of logical process, it'll be quite a lot to take in.
Yeah.
The way, and because you've got to initialize the instance of the database at the point of starting the application. So the application itself then creates the instance of the database upon boot, and then you've got a code in there for it to not keep creating new instances.
Yeah.
Every
yeah,
time
I downloaded because they've got Round Studio, haven't they? So you can, and it's free, so you can sit and have a play with it. And yeah, I started to have a play with it. Instantly got taken back to battling with object-oriented Java, and yeah, I don't think I've opened it again since.
Yeah, well, the book chapter walks you through building an instance, simple instance, and then it talks you through the headers and the arrays and the structures and stuff like that. So tries to kind of break it down and make it a bit more straightforward. But yeah, I'm definitely getting to that point where I don't really want to see it ever again.
And remember what we said about tangents?
Yeah. we've gone way off on a tangent, haven't we? Other things that I just very quickly want to cover, and then we'll go on to our topic, and we'll do a 10-minute blast on our topic.
Yeah.
So, firstly, the Forensic Forecast Awards that kind of was started by Lee Whitfield in 2008. I really wanted to mention this because this did make me laugh. I was telling Adam just before we came on air, but I've done a lot of the training courses and the open source conferences and stuff run by Basis Technology with the Open Source Digital Forensics Conference and some of the training that Brian Carrier's done, and which is great, fantastic. Love Autopsy, big Sleuth Kit fan, kind of big open source fan, as I mentioned before. And they sent around an email, and I'm gonna quote some of this. This is great. If anyone's received this, you know what I'm talking about. And they said to talk about the awards, and they wanted to kind of help people in super objective recommendations that they would like to make for various categories. And so they've posted a 100% neutral, unbiased recommendations blog. So our 100% unbiased Forecast Awards nominations: Commercial Tool of the Year, Cyber Triage by Basis Technology.
Unbiased.
Non-Commercial Tool of the Year, Autopsy by Basis Technology.
Again, unbiased.
Show of the Year, Open Source Digital Forensic Conference run by Basis Technology. Training Course of the Year, Divide and Conquer DFIR Process by Brian Carrier of Basis Technology. And they've even added their own category of Digital Forensics Dog of the Year, Cash.
Yeah. Completely unbiased. Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. It had me laughing. So yeah, to everyone at Basis, thank you for that. That was brilliant. And the other thing was, when we last did the pilot, I was complaining about a Chromebook that I was doing. So I was still in the forensic lab back then, and I was doing a Chromebook job, and I was tearing my hair out about it. And literally a week later, Magnet released their Chromebook tool.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
you can't write this stuff.
It happens all the time, and it's no different. Like with sort of mobile phone software, is it that you were battling and you put a script. I remember putting a script together when I first stumbled across the Knowledge C and wrote this really big SQL statement, and then like you say, then 2 weeks later, Magnet came out, or another vendor I can't recall, and did it all for me. And I was like, I'm glad I spent half a week doing that.
Yeah. It just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But at least you had the satisfaction of being able to get it working.
Yeah. And like we said earlier, I ended up setting up loads of test data, so you can then validate your findings. So, and when I subsequently went to court after that and gave evidence from like the Knowledge C database, that put me in a better place to actually understand what I was presenting. So, not always a bad thing.
No, not always a bad thing. Yeah, so that's a roundup of all the news stuff. Took a little bit longer than planned.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say is we'll do a quick blitz of the College of Policing, and then if we can squeeze in a quick forensic faux pas, we'll try and do that. So, do you want to start us off on the College of Policing topic, Adam?
Yeah. So, like we said, College of Policing released an updated sort of guidelines for dealing with digital devices, and this sort of aligns with the ICO report in regards to dealing with, because when we deal with digital devices, we're not just dealing with a suspect. We might be dealing with a victim or a witness handset. So do the current ACPO principles work, in relation to those devices? So the College of Policing put together, I can't recall how many pages it was, Phil, do you?
No, it was in the tens.
Yeah,
it was in the tens of pages.
Yeah, I did have a read through it, and there was a lot of extra words that didn't need to be there, in my opinion.
Yes,
but yeah, so going back, the four principles of the ACPO guidelines. So Principle 1, no action taken by an examiner should change data on that device when it's relied upon in court.
Yeah.
Number 2, so if you find it necessary to access that original data, that you've got to be able to go to court and justify why you've done that. For example, mobile devices. When you're dealing with them, in order to get an extraction, they have to be on. Well, by being on, you are changing data. But it's just being able to explain and justify that. Principle 3 is that an audit log should be kept so an independent third party can come to exactly the same conclusions you did. And principle 4 is the best one, is the big cheese is always responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. Known as the officer in the case.
Yeah.
In the UK. But yeah, absolutely. So I always used to summarise it in training as don't change any data. It's the first one.
Yeah.
If you're going to change data, then at least know what you're doing and kind of be trained in and competent in doing it. Then if you are going to change any data and you're trained and competent to do it, or if you're going to access that data in any way, make sure you keep an audit trail and write down what you've done, so someone else can do it. And then lastly is, like you said, the ultimate responsibility lies with the officer in the case.
Yeah.
So and those are, and when we say ACPO principles, that's anyone not in the UK. That's the Association of Chief Police Officers for UK policing, which is now actually no longer used. It's actually the NPCC, I believe. The National Police Chiefs Council.
Yeah. This is getting like an episode of Line of Duty with all these actors.
Yeah, it's all this.
Cheers.
Great show, by the way. But yeah, lots of acronyms. Or is it TLAs?
Yeah,
that are acronyms. But yeah, and when you say ICO, obviously the Information Commissioner's Office.
Yeah.
So the in the UK, the person responsible, the office responsible for kind of information security, data protection, making sure businesses, people are protected and they protect others, etc. And yeah, the you're right. The report that was released by the College of Policing was trying to modernise the way that we look at suspects and victims and witnesses, and I think it needs clarification because previously we've not really considered the difference between, or there's not been any guidance specifically between the difference of suspect and witness and victims, especially when it comes to mobile phone data.
Yeah.
Which is becoming so much more important.
Well, the 4 principles don't really deal with how long you store that exhibit for.
No.
You know, do you hand that exhibit back, or because that is always original evidence. It doesn't matter once you've got, you know, it's okay with computers that you can get a complete physical from a hard drive, but with phones, the phone is always going to be the original evidence.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, and absolutely, and I think the what this document was referred to as what's called APP or approved professional practice. So the College of Policing in the UK will release APP, and then all forces are expected to essentially use that as guidance and how to approach certain situations and certain policies and procedures, which makes sense. I think it often forms the basis for a lot of other authorities as well.
yeah,
And this was a draft for a new APP around digital evidence handling. And the thing that I got quite vocal about it before Christmas 2020, especially on LinkedIn, because I just felt that it was kind of pushed under the radar a little bit, and it was published. I don't think it was very well written. I think the principles are correct, but I think the way that it was presented was poor.
because didn't they only allow for a review? Like, they gave such a short date for people to send feedback in.
It was kind of, they've released it just before Christmas, and all the feedback had to be in like either just after Christmas or just after New Year.
Yeah.
So it was the period when no one was at work, and no one had the time to do it. And there wasn't really that much marketing or publication about it, so it just felt very under the radar. So I tried to flag it up with a lot of people just to kind of get some get some feedback in, really, so that it got the scrutiny that it needed.
Yeah.
And I think it was quite a general consensus. Everyone who read it was kind of agreeing with what you and I have said about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we weren't sure if it was meant to replace the ACPO principles, because I think they still stand for how you should deal with digital evidence, but it was more of how it was just to differentiate if you're dealing with a suspect's device or a victim or witness. But
yeah, that's it. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that. We haven't really had any update from it
No.
since. It did contradict what was written in the Forensic Science Regulators report around about the same time, which probably doesn't help it somewhat.
Yeah, and we should just add that for people who are interested, we will put links in the podcast show notes to all these sort of articles and things. So
yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate we haven't had much time to talk about it today, but we can always kind of revisit, and especially when the next version of the drafts come out, we can certainly revisit, because I think it's quite an interesting topic, and it's one that's going to quite heavily impact the industry once it starts all kind of coming out. So, and it will eventually, I think, lead to impacting ISO 17025, so the standards for so laboratory standards around validation and verification of tools and methods, which will then also impact the 4Mobile project, where they're looking at these international standards, which will kind of be quite similar to the APPO principles and also the ISO 17025 requirements. So I think it will have a knock-on effect, and we need to make sure that as a discipline, as an industry, we need to make sure that anything that comes out is properly scrutinised, so that it doesn't negatively impact it. Because all that's going to happen if we get restricted in what we can do and the way in which we can do things, and I appreciate you need kind of ethical and moral boundaries to everything that we do. It needs to be proportionate and appropriate. But if there's too much, kind of if it's written badly and there's too much kind of going the other way, then it's going to ultimately negatively impact victims and witnesses.
Yeah, and a prime example of this is I went to a client site, was showcasing something that the MSAB tool did, and they weren't aware that the tool could do that. And when I asked, why haven't you tried it? Because another acronym, my SOPs tell me to use that tool. So someone's standard operating procedure has found that tool does that very well, so that's what you use. And it worries me that you've got new examiners and analysts coming through, and they're not open-minded about this because they're just following this procedure because that's what they're told.
Yeah, they're being told this is how it's done.
Yeah.
Kind of almost kind of restricting innovation and exploration.
Yeah,
and we want to encourage that in this industry.
Yeah, that's my only concern with, or I shouldn't say only, there's one of many, is that it does restrict that creativity and that, what we said at the beginning, that you need multiple tools. Yeah. You have to think outside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to keep talking about this, but we are restricted on time, and I want to make sure we very quickly get in our final segment. I think we need to... we'll park that. Please email us or contact us if you want to discuss it further. That'd be great. But now let's have a look at our forensic faux pas.
Sounds good.
So, Adam, what is your forensic faux pas, or the one that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so like you said, I've got many, but I think the one that I continually did, so it wasn't just a one-off, it wasn't a typical encase image your own hard drive.
That's the standard one, isn't
it? Yeah. Which was the most annoying one. If you worked on an exhibit, finish all your processing, and then you put it back in the bag, you sealed it up, take it back into the exhibit store, return to your desk, and what catches your little eye? the SIM card or the SD card that you didn't put back in the device, or if you were dealing with a computer tower, the kettle lead. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did it multiple times, and literally everyone in my forensic unit would just do the Nelson Muntz laugh, ha ha.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So that is mine that I'm willing to share.
I think we've all been there. We've all been there. I feel your pain. So,
So which one are you willing to share?
again, I have many, and any of my ex-colleagues who are listening to this will be like kind of screaming, probably various different ones. Most days there was something. Mine would probably be when I was trying to, you go to those, you sometimes get put on those operations where you've got a big job, loads and loads of people involved, usually like a drugs job or an organised crime group or something, and you get hitting loads of addresses all at the same time, and it's all kind of this coordinated plan of, right, gather these devices, bring them over here, give them to these guys, and these guys will do this forensic analysis, and you do like an 18-hour shift just doing as many as you can. And it was one of those, and it was an organised crime group. They were doing that thing where they kind of all buy a batch buy of the same phones, so like, a Nokia 105 or something like that. And so you just got loads of these phones that all look exactly the same on the outside, and obviously you got the identifiers and stuff like that. But just at first glance, just like, yep, no, they all look the same. And in the rush to try and get everything done after a 16, 17 hours of shift, kind of think, I know, I'm going to put, because one of those things with XLY that I was using at the time, you can do 3 extractions at once on the hub. So I thought, I know, I'm going to use both my forensic machines, 3 extractions at once. That's 6 devices I can get running all at the same time here. Set them all up, leave them overnight, come back the next morning. Have I labelled up which ones were which?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. So I'm looking at my desk, and then this stack of evidence bags and stuff, and I'm just thinking, what? Which one did I put where? And I obviously worked it out because of all the reference numbers. But just at first glance, there was just that, oh, I've been an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have managed this better last night, but I was just too tired.
Yeah.
So that was one of mine. Obviously, I've done the end case thing, and kind of, oh my gosh, this person's got. They've got end case and they've got FTK and
they're forensic examiner.
Oh, they've got these PDFs on forensic examination and no, that's the forensic machine.
That's your C drive.
We've all done that. Thank you for sharing that one. Hopefully people can laugh at our expense.
Yeah, and by all means, do send yours in, please. I look forward to reading them.
Yes, like we say, we can anonymise them. It's not a problem. That I think we are overrunning.
Yeah,
we've gone over our planned time, but for episode 1, I think we're allowed that. We're allowed that. Episode 1. We'll get better. But yeah, to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Anyone watching this, thanks for watching. Thank you to you, Adam, for waking up in time after your night shift and drinking all the coffee in order to be here and battling with your cold that you're suffering with at the moment. So I think you've done a marvellous job.
No, thank you very much. We do know how bad man flu is, so
Yes, and I know that you were definitely struggling before we went on air.
Yeah.
So well done, sir. I tip my hat to you.
And likewise to you, buddy, with how much I know you've got going on. But Phil and I were both passionate and keen that we wanted to start something that, is going to help the community. And, even if it's someone's commuting to work and they listen and have a laugh, listen to our forensic faux pas, that's what we're doing this for.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. So any suggestions, thoughts, ideas, feedback, comments, anything, please feel free to get in touch, let us know, because we want to make this for you guys. We want to have fun while we're doing it. We don't want it to be too formal, but we also, like we say, want it to be neutral, and we'll talk about any digital forensic related subject that you would like us to talk about. Just let us know, or if there's cool tools or things that have come out, again, tell us about it. So So yeah, from us, I say thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and we'll hopefully see you on the next episode.
Thank you all.